guessing this video is going to make Klaus very happy, because finally we're going to redesign the Mercedes S-Class W140 and modernize its shape, because this shape to me is one of the best looking S-Classes of all time. It's one of the most elegant and more presidential looking S-Class. So I can't wait to show you what I'm gonna do with this. I'm very excited for this video, and I'm very excited for the redesign of this car and make this a modern version of what it already is. But first of all, let's have a look at the design here. There are some very interesting small details in the design that is typical for Mercedes of this era, and that is kind of weird when you think about it in modern terms. For example, have a look at the shoulder line here of this W140 S-Class. You have the hood going almost up into the windshield, so the hood ends higher than the rest of the shoulder line, which is something that you don't normally see today, because usually we have an extended shoulder line that goes from the start of the hood and then stretches all the way back to the rear end of the car. But on top of that, we have a hood that goes up into the windshield right there, and then you have, look at the shoulder line where the windows are. It even dips down, so it's kind of the inverted line of the hood. You can see that this line here, it dips down. It has a curvature going downwards like this, which of course, yes, it gives the passengers more of a view down to the ground, and it also creates this weird proportions for the car here. The thing with the Mercedes S-Class, this one, the W140, is that I always thought that the roofline sits too high, because we have almost 50% of the full height of the car right here. If we take the measurement from down here all the way up to the roof up here, the window line is almost at the middle of this line, so it doesn't have any dynamic feeling to it, and it looks kind of top heavy, just because of that fact that the windows take up so much space on top of the car, and the roofline sits too high in my opinion. How can we solve this problem? One way is to extend the shoulder line and have it be going somewhere up here, something like this. So we cut into the windows a little bit and have a continuous curvature going from the hood all the way back to the rear graphics back here, or this corner right here. That's one way we can solve this problem. A second way is to simply just lower the roofline by a couple of inches, something like this. So we cut off right here, and that, if we do one of these changes, it's going to make a huge difference on the proportions of the car, obviously. But imagine if we make both of these changes on this car. It's going to make a massive difference in the problem that we have with the top heaviness with the graphics as we have them right here. I do understand that this was made for luxury. It wasn't going to be a sports car at all, but at the same time you can still make it look more dynamic and more beautiful by making these subtle changes to the car. And of course, something else that we definitely need to change here is another thing that is typical for these eras, specifically when it comes to Mercedes. They have like dual tone, so we have a body color up here, and then we have different colored bumpers. This was pretty common in the 80s and the 90s. Not just Mercedes did this, but this is typical for the early 90s Mercedes. If you compare it to the late 90s to early 2000s, these became color matched with the rest of the body. So that is of course something that we need to do in the redesign, and also the integration between bumper and body. If you look at modern cars, normally you have some sort of slope going like this, and then this creates the integration with the bumper, and it kind of fades into the body here, so we don't have a specifically strong cut line between the bumper itself and the body of the car, which we have on this 1991 SL600 right here. So that has to be changed as well. I want to integrate the bumper in a modern way, and on top of that, remove these taillights here, upgrade those. However, one thing I love about this generation of Mercedes, not just the S-Class but the E-Class as well, is the cut line of the trunk, because the cut line of the trunk is it's a very defining design feature for this type of era Mercedes, and it creates the end point for the taillights. And I absolutely love these taillights and this bar that goes down here, this reflective bar in the lower part of the car. This to me is what makes the W140 special, is the treatment of the rear graphics of the car. Other than that, it's pretty much just an extended or a larger E-Class of the time. On top of this, all these changes, we of course need to add some more modern wheels to this car right here and have them be, as usual, pushed out just a little bit like this so that they sit flush with the rest of the body of the car. These are the major changes we're going to do. It's going to be a lot of different changes going on here. So let's continue in Photoshop and let's see how this W140 redesign is going to turn out. Now, when I was a kid, I used to have a model of the W140 S-Class. So it was one of these models that you get in a package. It comes in pieces, and then you have to, you know, tear all the pieces apart and then glue them together, and boom, you had your model. And I had a lot of these models, but I think there was something special with the W140 S-Class. It felt solid. I just loved the look of it, and I specifically loved the rear white reflective bar that goes underneath the taillights. That was the separation from the E-Class to me, and I don't know, it was something special about it. I love light bars today, in case you didn't know, even though every single auto manufacturers have them now, specifically in 1 or 2 models of their cars. It's a huge trend of this year and last year as well. I think it's going to be a trend moving forward as well. But it looked special on the W140, and this specific S-Class, it looked presidential. It felt solid, it was well structured, and it feels almost like a bulletproof car with great geometries and lines. Even though we have the shoulder line that dips a little bit, which is something we're going to address in the redesign here, and have it be even more. I want to solidify these lines even more in this redesign while keeping this bossy vibe in the design, which I think Mercedes had this vibe of having the S-Class just feel like a different car from the rest of the Mercedes lineup. The S-Class has always been special. It's always had this I'm better than you status over the rest of the lineup. But I think with this lasted up until the model of 2021, in my opinion, because the latest S-Class, to me, it just doesn't have that separation. I've talked about it in a video on the channel here, which you can go and check out. It's specifically dedicated to the new S-Class, and I redesigned the rear and make it more of a structured rear while keeping the new graphics of the car, and I think it works out. The rear just looks too weak to me. It looks like it's fading into nothing from a very solid front and shoulder and 3/4 rear, and then but the rear graphics of the car just doesn't work. It doesn't have enough structure, and in my opinion, the E-Class have more structure than the S-Class when it comes to the 2021 and 2022 models, and that just doesn't work for me. So I want to create here the ultimate high-speed Autobahn cruiser, a car that will take you from point A to point B not only quickly but quietly, while wrapping you in luxury and great comfort. That is what I want this redesign to be and feel like, and that is what I think a proper German full-size sedan should be like, and that is what I think a proper S-Class should feel like as well. Now, the V12 in the S600 here from 1991 up until 2000, I believe, or actually no, it's earlier, 1998, had 389 horsepower. And then we have, of course, the famous 5-liter V8 from Mercedes that they put in the S500, which has 315 horsepower in the W140, and then when the W220 came out, they reduced it to 306 horsepower. But of course, the favorite car with the V8, the 5-liter V8, in my opinion, is the SL500 R129. That car to me is one of the most beautiful cars of all time. Is the SL500, specifically with the AMG package in either silver or black from 2001, which was the last year of the R129. And one day I will own that exact car. Black on black or silver on black works as well, because I think silver works better because it shows off the lines even more. But that's for another video. Now we're talking about the W140 here. So this is what I'm doing. One thing I love about the new S-Class that I think is incredibly beautiful are these wheels that I'm gonna put on this redesign. These are some of the most beautiful stock wheels I've ever seen, and they just suit the S-Class perfectly because they're elegant, they're very simple, but if you look closely, you can see that there are some interesting details of how the spokes come together in the center of the wheel, and I think it just makes it for a great S-Class wheel. And I'm taking the rear lights from the W222, which I also think looks very good when it comes to separating the S-Class from the rest of the lineup. That is the S-Class that came in 2014. And I think that has a very bossy rear end. I love the rear lights. It has this little line in the rear light itself. If you go close, if you ever see a 221, go close and look at the rear light. You can see that it has this curvature in the plastic hull or the plastic cover of the rear lights that continues into the body lines. I think that's just a beautiful touch that probably not a lot of people are gonna see, but if you look closely, you can see what I'm talking about. But I want to take these lights because I like them and then reshape them to fit the rear lights of the W140. I think this is going to look absolutely incredible in combination with everything else that we're doing right here to modernize the W140. Alright guys, so here it is, my modernization of the W140, and I have to say, I think this might be my favorite redesign I've ever made on the channel. This, to me, if Mercedes were to come out with this in 2021 instead of the one they're actually coming out with, I can tell you I would not complain about that design. This looks like a proper, solid, executive luxury German saloon that you would see on the Autobahn going 250 kilometers per hour, 155 miles per hour, silently, like a ghost just passing by in a very elegant and quiet way. And just look at the difference when we lowered the roofline, and on top of that created a shoulder line that actually follows the rest of the body of the car. So we have a solid shoulder line right here, and then the integration of the bumper, it makes such a huge difference for just having a more modern feel to this design. And this, it would work today. If this came out today, I would be super happy because this is my favorite design of the S-Class, and I'm sure having this kind of angular feel to the design that they had of the 90s and the early 2000s, I think that would actually help the overall space inside, and on top of that, it would just make for a cooler look of the S-Class. They can keep the other smaller, the E-Class, the C-Class, they can make them organic and whatever they want to do, but in my opinion, I want to keep the S-Class more of a geometric shape, because the more geometric the shape of an object, to me, the more luxurious it is, and the more stately. It's almost like a monument or something. You can't really have organic shapes when it comes to luxury. If you want to have a solid structure to something that looks almost architectural, you need to have more of angular surfaces to the car, and I think this would just be absolutely incredible to see out on the streets if Mercedes were to ever make something like this. Thank you so much for watching. I'm the TheSketchMonkey. Take care, and I hope to see you in the next video.